The courage to be disliked. Ichiro Kishimi, Fumitake Koga. What's inside? Learn to prioritize self-love and live free from the weight of others' expectations. Explore how it will contribute significantly to your well-being and daily satisfaction. About the author. Ichiro Kishimi is a Japanese philosopher and Adlerian psychologist focusing on human relationships and mental health. Fumitake Koga is a prominent Japanese author and lecturer. Chapter 1. Changing oneself is the first step to true happiness. The ultimate goal of our existence is always to be better, do better, and continue to strive to be better. It is in our nature to focus on self-improvement. Change is a process we are used to. However, we are frightened by sudden or forced shifts in the normal and prefer to approach it in safe amounts at a time. Some, however, avoid the opportunity to change altogether. Often, we are faced with the need to evolve. Whether it's ourselves or our environments, change is constant. And as such, the need to grow will remain ever present. The problem, however, is that we are afraid of sudden growth and unwilling to make an effort. But the power to change lies in our hands. We fear change, but without it, there's little hope for us in achieving our dreams. When we refuse to change, we cling hopelessly to the idea that the past affects the present and future. The reasoning is that whatever happens now will happen whether you act or not. But this is false because our destinies are not determined until we work in that direction. We must free our minds of the excuses that hold us back. Change is good for us in the long run. We must free our minds of the excuses that hold us back. Change is good for us in the long run. Change isn't time-dependent. You aren't running out of time to make the proper adjustments to your life. Whenever you want, you can change your life and set it on the right path. The risks we fear will come with making changes, but they are worth it in the end. We often think that if we do not experience improvements when others do, then we have failed. This mindset is harmful and forces us to either rush growth or abandon it altogether once the set time passes. Change doesn't have an expiration date. You can take a bold step now. We are the only ones who can make our lives better. The power to change is in our hands. We need to break free of the hold fear has on us. It only limits us and keeps us from being our true selves. In the following chapters, there are trusted steps on how to let go of the weight to be perfect, accept our true selves, and live a fulfilled life. Chapter 2. We must alter how much control our emotions have over us. Humans are emotional creatures, highly intelligent, but still prone to emotions from time to time. These emotions include anger, happiness, and sadness. Whether we admit it or not, they have a hold on us, and the only way to gain true happiness is to take back control and use our emotions to our advantage. Emotions are fickle things, but can have a long-lasting damaging effect on us if we let them. Just as we postpone change because of fear, there are other ways we deprive ourselves knowingly of a more wholesome life. One of which is the fabrication of emotions, which is when we fake a particular emotion or reaction to get away with something, or, in this case, avoid having to change. Emotions can be controlled. The goal is to utilize this control to your advantage. We often bring up trauma we may have already healed from as the reason why change is impossible. We are our own worst enemy when it comes to bettering ourselves, not because we hate ourselves, but because we are more willing to give excuses than do any real work towards changing. When confronted with the opportunity to grow and change, we create excuses instead. This action is often because we are often afraid of failure, and we cannot fail if we do not do anything outside our comfort zone. But self-improvement is waiting for us just outside of that zone. Past trauma isn't an excuse to be stuck in a bad mental and emotional phase. We must be courageous enough to move past it. If we wish to become better and happier, we must balance reality and our emotions. The excesses we condone must be put under check, and we need to make intentional efforts to crave and sustain happiness for ourselves. If we continue to let our emotions control us, we will never achieve anything. So, we must find the courage to be and do better. Did you know? Once you develop the courage to be disliked, you can indeed be free to be who you want to be. Chapter 3. You can live your life strictly for you. This is the path to true happiness. Sometimes we delay our happiness when we get sucked into the murky waters of comparison. We either do this to feel superior or inferior. When we compare our lives and successes with others, we are forced to feel like we are failing or falling short even when we aren't. Comparison robs us of true fulfillment because we gauge our successes according to the success of others. We, in turn, create unnecessary pressure for ourselves and make cycles of depression as a result. When we build a life around competition with others, we set ourselves up for defeat. We can't all be the same. Our paths, struggles, and victories are so diverse that to expect one's life to be the same as another is illogical. We must acknowledge the successes of those around us as their fate and not feel the need to replicate it in our lives. Sometimes we compare ourselves with our idea of the ideal self, which of course all humans fall short of. We aren't ideal, and we surely do not live in a perfect world, so to expect it is only to incur heartache. To truly grow, we must not burden our minds with a picture of perfection. Instead, we should think of models as a possibility. When you do this, you'll be more focused on the journey and count your little wins. Often we get so caught up in the big win at the end that we forget the small ones that culminate in it. There is no such thing as perfection. We all make mistakes and learn from them to do better. The courage to accept our lives as imperfect is the first step to achieving happiness through contentment. When we celebrate our little victories instead of competing, we free our minds of many negative emotions that cloud our judgment. Your only competition is who you were yesterday. The goal is to do better today, not become bitter. Do not live to satisfy the expectations of others. Ichiro Kishimi. Chapter 4. You are in control of how much your connections with people affect you. As social creatures, we have this inherent need to be seen. That is to be recognized and acknowledged. But many people often go about it the wrong way, inadvertently sacrificing their own identity for the recognition of others. A life centered around the recognition of others is weighted heavily by multiple expectations, ones that we might never meet. Don't try to fit in with the crowd. You have your path to follow. Live it to the fullest. When we form these connections, we must be careful not to be overly concerned about the judgments they'll have of you. In other words, you must have the courage to be disliked. If you make new friends, they need to know the real you and not a version of you within their acceptable standards. The best connections are those built on the genuineness of character. It would help if you found the courage to be the odd one out. Be original. Don't let anyone set standards for you that aren't you. When you are more concerned about your friends' opinions, you begin to lose sight of who you are and become more fixated on becoming them. You must realize that you have as much at stake in your various relationships as others have in theirs. You do you. Decide to live for yourself. Stop trying to please the people you are in relationships with because you are afraid to lose them. Once you free yourself of this weight of expectation and acceptance, you open up the door for a proper relationship dynamic, one where you can offer yourself in the most total capacity, untainted and true. Be sure to not place anyone above or below yourself. Treat everyone as equals with your communication and attitude. Chapter 5. A healthy interpersonal relationship is vital to creating a wholesome life. Interpersonal relationships are simply relationships we have with other people, colleagues, friends, and family. They are the bedrock of our existence, whether we admit it or not. Without these relationships, we would lose touch with reality and live relatively empty lives. But why do we form these relationships, and how can those who haven't already do so? Humans, by design, crave and create interpersonal relationships. The goal is to foster healthy ones. We form these interpersonal relationships because we need to our evolution, and cannot live detached from society. How do you create them? It's relatively easy. You must first have an active interest in others, not just yourself, and show commitment to the affairs of others besides you. Nurturing healthy interpersonal relationships is key to living a wholesome life. To effectively nurture healthy relationships, we must cultivate a few habits, namely, self-acceptance. We shy away from forming connections because we feel unworthy or imperfect. We need to change this mindset. We must focus only on the things we can adjust and work towards them. Confidence in others. It's often true that we reluctantly show confidence in anyone but ourselves because people can be untrustworthy. But to form deep and meaningful relationships, you must have complete faith and trust in the people you form connections with. Contribution to others. As we form connections, we must make conscious efforts to contribute in our way to their lives. As we do, we create a sense of value and usefulness in ourselves, knowing that we can positively affect others and not just ourselves. Chapter 6. There is more fulfillment in being oneself and living out one's dreams. Day by day, little by little, we have made it regular not to be normal. We have decided that the only way to be is the trendy or generally accepted pattern society has laid out. This has created a generation of faceless drones, all striving to copy the set design. This notion has created a harsh and toxic environment for anyone who chooses to live by rules that make them most comfortable. We must not let the opinions of people shape who we are and how we live. In a world like that, it takes a lot of courage to be one's true self. When there is so much judgment waiting for whoever dares live outside the confines of these standards, there will be a shortage of authentic people. Ordinarily, this pressure to be someone you're not shouldn't affect, but we have failed to accept ourselves for who we are. We must be courageous, rebel against set patterns, and create our niches. We must stop and appreciate life for the exact way it is, and only seek improvements where they are needed. If you have set goals, pursue them, but don't expect them all to get achieved. If you keep putting so much weight on your set goals, you set yourself up for unhappiness. We live in the present and live for the future. We must not lose sight of the here and now in search of tomorrow. We must take pride in the here and now, the present. We might be aiming for a goal, but we need to appreciate the little gifts life has granted us while we wait. Without this, we might lose focus on the essential things. The goal is important, but so is the journey to it. If we are too focused on the future, we risk ever living in the now. The key to a wholesome life is letting oneself experience life's stages to the fullest: past, present, and future. Your unhappiness cannot be blamed on your past or your environment. And it isn't that you lack competence. You just lack courage. One might say you are lacking in the courage to be happy. Ichiro Kishimi. In conclusion, understanding oneself is the first step to becoming a better you. When you know yourself, you can take proper steps to improve and better your life. We must not look at change with so much dread. It can be good to open ourselves to it. As we attempt to change ourselves, we must also remember to change how we react and how much control our emotions have over us. They can hinder a lot of potential growth. Getting your emotions in check will pave the way for you to free yourself from the pressure you face when letting others decide how your life should go. It would be best if you learn to live for yourself. Knowing how to distance yourself from the opinions of others is very vital because it helps you nurture healthier relationships with others in the long run. You must realize that you are one of a kind, and as such, you must act accordingly. Refuse to be caged or classified. Own your uniqueness and show enough courage to be you, unapologetically you. It takes a lot of courage to be different in a world that's forcing you to be like everyone else. You might even be disliked, but you'd be living a life you chose, free and happy. The courage to be disliked is refusing to live within the confines of people's negative opinions of you. It is choosing to live freely by rules set by you, rules that ensure you are living a healthy and fulfilling life. Try this. If you want the courage to be disliked, you must first accept yourself wholly, thereby blocking any negative external feedback. These are steps to follow to accept yourself. Embrace the fear of failure. Know your purpose. Gain control of your mind. Remember that you don't have to be perfect. You need only to be authentic. Thank you for watching. Do not forget to subscribe so you won't miss next book to boost your life. Serve yourself first, then the world.